Hey guys, it's your pal Victor here from Cult Classics and Cult Following, and we're doing our weekly recap and spoiler watch of WandaVision. So this is kind of like a recap video. We just did our live watch party, so we're just gonna kick it off with the big reveals here. And God, there were a lot of them on this episode, and it ended up with a big cliffhanger. But yeah, here's kind of like the big things that happened this week, at where we ended up last time. We got a recap of everything, but from Monica's perspective, and the sword and everything, and ended up with Monica being kicked out of the anomaly, the bubble, if you will. And this time we find out that it has a name. It's the Maximoff anomaly. Darcy's been basically looking at the structure of the thing, which is made up of like color hexes, and they're hexagonal shapes, so she's calling it the hex. So now we know all these hexagonal symbols we see are just basically visual representation of Wanda's power, which scratch AIM off the list. AIM doesn't have anything to do with this show. So now we also find out that Wanda is the one who's completely aware of what's going on in this world, and she's keeping Vision deliberately in the dark. Anytime he starts to kind of get an idea of what's going on, she changes the genre and age of the TV show so she can confuse him. And this is the 80s episode, and the Easter egg here is the opening credits and layout of the show this week are all a throwback to Family Ties, which is an 80s TV show that starred Michael J. Fox as Alex P. Keaton, precocious Republican son to hippie parents, and it starts the same way where it's like a family portrait that's being painted in, Yeah, and other than that, there's not too many other visual homages other than everybody's very 80s. It's also a big clue here is that I think it's pretty easy to say based on the 70s episode and this episode that Agnes and Herb are both under less control than other people in Westview. So they kind of fear Wanda, but they've been woken up a little bit. So they just don't want to fall into her complete thrall again, which apparently is very painful because Norm is able to come out of the thrall and he's just in shock, and when Vision has to kind of put him back under. In this episode, we also find out that Vision clearly knows something's wrong. He's been brought back and it isn't right. We find out that prior to creating this hex that Wanda did indeed get Vision's corpse and bring it in with her into the hex. So she did reanimate him. We don't really know yet if he can survive outside of the hex, which we'll find out sooner or later, although a working theory we had in the watch party was actually that since Wanda's powers are derived from the mind gem, maybe she is enough to actually bring him back completely, although it does seem he came back wrong. What else is going on here? Well, we find out if you send things that are era appropriate into the hex, they won't be destroyed or converted into the wrong thing. So they send in an 80s drone to take photos. And then Wanda gets pissed at it. Hayward, we find out, loaded it with missiles. A very dumb move as she actually steps outside of the anomaly and tells, Sword, leave me alone. This is my home. Stay away from it. This is what I want. Stand down, we also find out Tommy and Billy, they end up getting a puppy this episode who Agnes kind of lets them on thinking the puppy died. So Wanda tries to teach him about, the facts of life and death. And the kids are like, you can bring people back from the dead. What does that matter? At which Vision is really kind of upset about because he's pretty much realizing that that's what's going on. They have a big argument that Wanda tries to stop by rolling the credits. And it's it's one of the most, like, oof, you know, they're arguing while these credits are rolling, and it was just kind of it's hurting my eyes. And Vision doesn't believe anything she says because she's just keeping him in the dark. And Wanda's like, this isn't how I remember you. And then he says, like, you know, I've never been like this before. And while they're arguing, the doorbell rings and she goes to open it. And behind the doorbell is Pietro, her brother. But it's Pietro, played by Evan Peters, who played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, not in the MCU movies. So that's a weird twist. And now we're kind of into like the multiverse theory here, where we were arguing she's kept this, you know, kind of hole, this hex going for so long, maybe punched a hole in the multiverse that someone's taking advantage of, like Dormammu or something. Or maybe because she's so grief-stricken and having such a hard time keeping control of the hex anomaly, it's kind of taking the life of its own and created like a Pietro that's not Pietro, you know? So those are sort of the operating theories right now, and at some point, you know, it's going to come to a head. And yeah, her kids are becoming very powerful and they can age themselves up, which happens in this episode, and it's super creepy. Anything else? Oh yeah, you know, at Vision's job, you know, we find out that their computers can pick up the signals and emails that Darcy's sending out, and everyone in the office is reading the emails. They all think it's a joke until Vision gets a charge and uses it to wake Norm up, and he freaks out because he's in tons of pain from the mind control. Excuse me. So yeah, now we know that the mind control actually hurts. We see that Monica knows an aerospace engineer that might be able to help them get into the anomaly. So that's clearly another Marvel character, which makes us wonder, who's in Marvel Aerospace Engineer? Let's Google that. Nine of the 10 best, let's see, 9 of the best engineers in the Marvel Universe. So let's see. Let's see. Dr. Doom? Doesn't seem like somebody that Monica Rambeau would be friends with. Spider-Man? Is he an aerospace engineer, though? I don't know that I would say that. Dr. Octopus. He's an engineer, but he's a Sony character. Iron Man? Iron Man's dead. Hank Pym. Possible. Would she have a connection? Would Monica have a connection to Hank Pym? It's hard to say, but I mean that's a good, could be that character. It could be Hope Van Dyne. It could be Jan Van Dyne. Any of those are aerospace engineers, I suppose. Hank McCoy, well, that's an X-Men character, so I don't see that happening. Forge, probably wouldn't be him. Shuri, possible. Reed Richards, I don't think we would see him debut on this show. So yeah, that was a list of 10 Marvel engineers. Yeah, I can't really think of anybody else. Somebody from Iron Man, you know, they could have gotten Justin Hammer. They could have gotten, who else? you know, Rhodey, I suppose. So we're gonna get another character reveal soon, that, you know, somebody who could be friends with Monica, who's an aerospace engineer, could be somebody connected to S.H.I.E.L.D., you know. Maybe we'll find out. But yeah, Hank certainly seems, any of the Van Dynes could certainly be that character. But yeah, I mean, the big thing is do you guys think that was real Pietro, multiverse Pietro? Do you think he's here to help or hurt? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting take for the next episode. But yeah, leave your thoughts below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this recap, and our theories and spoilers so far. And yeah, we'll catch you next week for another recap of WandaVision. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See ya.